All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Expectation versus reality, the DIY carpet dilemma. We all love a good home improvement project, right? And the appeal of saving thousands of dollars by doing the labor yourself is incredibly strong. But as we're about to see through the source material, laying down your own carpet is an arena where your high expectations can very quickly collide with a rather painful reality. So, should you DIY your carpet installation? That is the million-dollar question, or depending on your house, maybe the $5,000 question. We're going to explore this by contrasting the sterile corporate installation guidelines with the raw, literal pain of everyday DIYers. On one hand, you've got instruction manuals making it sound like a simple, logical sequence. On the other hand, community forums are just filled with homeowners who have lived through the physical toll. Let's look at the data and figure out if doing it yourself is actually worth it. Section 1, the carpet dilemma. Picture this. You're trying to prep a good-sized house, about 2,340 square feet to sell. Buyers expect fresh new carpet, right? But then, bam, you get hit with a quote from a big box store for $8,900. I mean, nearly $9,000 just to replace the flooring before handing over the keys. That's the kind of massive sticker shock that immediately makes you pull out your phone and start Googling how to install carpet yourself. And our homeowner here is staring down a very strict budget. They literally took to the forums in an absolute panic, writing, "Where can I save here? Budget is closer to $5,000 for a home I am selling. $8,900 is not going to work." I mean, it's totally relatable. When you're staring down a nearly $4,000 deficit right out of the gate, the temptation to just do it yourself becomes incredibly strong. Section 2, sourcing and costs. Now, this is where it gets super interesting. Professionals actually say you can hit that $5,000 target and, get this, without breaking your own back. The secret isn't doing the heavy lifting yourself. It's completely changing how you buy. Sourcing local, independent installers and buying your materials separately reveals that a 2,340 square foot home can realistically cost between $4,700 and $6,400. Big box stores heavily mark up their retail installation, so by separating those costs, you drastically cut down the overhead. And hey, you don't even have to sacrifice quality to do this. You can secure premium padding, like the Ceramide and Virus Step. This stuff is top tier. It boasts great environmental specs, it's totally recyclable, has 90% recycled urethane filling, and a really solid 9-pound density. It even exceeds strict air quality standards. You can get all that premium quality without the premium big box markup. Section 3, the technical reality. Okay, so you might be wondering, if the materials are affordable, why not just lay it down yourself? Well, this is where the DIY dream slams headfirst into a brick wall of technical reality. Just listen to what the Shaw Industries manual requires. Before a single inch of carpet is rolled out, your environment has to be meticulously controlled. You must have the HVAC running between 65 and 95 degrees for a full 24 hours prior. Ambient humidity, gotta be strictly under 65%. You even have to test the subfloor's pH balance to ensure it sits perfectly between 5.0 and 9.0 so the adhesives actually work. It is literally a controlled science experiment before it's even a flooring job. And it doesn't stop there. Even placing the tack strips requires extreme, millimeter-perfect precision. The manual strictly dictates that the gully, which is the tiny gap between the tack strip and the wall, has to be slightly less than the carpet's thickness, but absolutely cannot exceed 3/8 of an inch. If you misjudge this tiny gap, your entire room's carpet is eventually going to bunch up or pull away. But here is where the real physical nightmare begins for an amateur. The manual mandates that the carpet must be stretched exactly 1% to 1.5% in both the width and length directions. Now, 1% sounds small, right? But applying that much sustained tension across a heavy, woven fabric spanning an entire room, that is an enormous physical undertaking. Section 4, tools of the trade. So how do you even get that perfect 1.5% stretch? You need specialized tools that most homeowners have literally never touched. Enter the power stretcher. This tool is mandatory for large rooms to ensure proper tension and prevent those awful long-term wrinkles. And it is a massive device. Professionals note that you often have to place a 2x4 piece of lumber against the baseboard just to disperse the push-off weight. If you don't do that, the stretcher might actually punch a hole straight through your drywall. It's heavy, it's intimidating, and it is absolutely necessary. Meanwhile, we have the infamous knee kicker. And oh boy, is this tool heavily misunderstood by DIYers. It relies completely on the blunt force trauma of your own kneecap slamming into a padded block to micro-adjust the carpet onto the tack strips. Because it's a smaller tool and usually rentable for just like $30, many beginners wrongly assume it's all they need to do a whole room. Actually, scratch that. It's probably the worst mistake you can make. The professionals make the distinction incredibly clear. The power stretcher does the heavy lifting for the entire room. You pull lengthwise, you pull widthwise. The knee kicker, that is strictly for fine-tuning, small closets and tight spots. If you try to use a knee kicker to do a power stretcher's job, you are just setting yourself up for a world of pain and a really poorly installed floor. Section 5, DIY versus the pros. Let's look at the unfiltered, on-the-ground reality of what happens when an everyday person attempts this physical feat. One DIYer went online and shared that they tried using a cheap $20 knee kicker for a single 11 by 10 foot room. Their review? My knees are shot over the span of 30 minutes of whacking my knees up. I mean, think about that. Just 30 minutes in a tiny 110 square foot room left them physically wiped out. Now imagine trying to do that for an entire house. No way. And I love this response. A 10-year professional veteran replied to that DIYer with this wonderfully dark humor, saying, "But installing carpet for 10 years. I feel your pain, and I'm sorry for your loss." These pros know that carpet laying is brutally hard labor. It is a trade where seasoned veterans routinely suffer from joint issues. So when an amateur steps into the ring with a rental tool, the experts literally just offer their condolences. And beyond the physical pain, there's the seaming. Joining two pieces of carpet with hot melt tape is unbelievably prone to error. You have to perfectly apply sealer to both edges, center this thermoplastic tape, and melt it with a grooved iron move strictly in the direction of the pile, like the natural way the fibers lean. And then you have to trail the iron with a non-heat conductive weight, not a metal one because that traps moisture. It's like a giant stressful puzzle. One wrong move and the seam is completely ruined. If you fail at any of these precise steps, the consequences are immediate. Your mistakes won't just look a little off. They will literally bubble up right in the middle of the room the very next day. Skip the power stretcher, you get loose, wavy carpet. Botch the thermoplastic seaming, you'll have a permanent, ugly line slicing right through your living room forever. Which brings us to this quote from the source material that just hits the nail on the head. DIY is only cheaper if you can do the job adequately. Otherwise, you're paying for materials, tool rental, and your time, then having to pay to have it ripped out. It is the ultimate DIY trap. Time and sanity absolutely have a dollar value. If you spend your entire weekend bruising the knees, paying rental fees, and ruining expensive carpet, you haven't saved a dime. You just created a brand new, very expensive disaster for a real professional to come in and fix. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final thought. When you're facing a pricey home renovation, what is the true value of your time, your physical health, and your sanity? When you look at the raw facts, the exact subfloor pH, the 1.5% tension math, the literal blunt force trauma to your knees, it becomes incredibly clear why hiring an independent local pro isn't just easier, it's often the smartest investment you can possibly make. Is saving a few bucks really worth the cost to your body? Thanks for joining me as we unroll the truth behind this topic. See you next time.